like you. Be strong to hold the powers of the sun. To dream, believe.
Let's listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. Now, in this video, I think it's important in light of the new information that we have been granted in this case as it relates to the transcripts, the judge's ruling, the hearings, everything that we've learned here in the past few weeks. As you start to dissect some of the new information, some questions are answered and some things really demand more questions. So looking at a couple of these aspects of this case, we've got to go back to the roommates because, in my humble opinion now, everything connects through one particular roommate. And as I do this video, I need you to understand the perspective because it's always important to differentiate the perspectives that we're talking about. You see, most of the time here lately, I've been talking through the perspective of the law enforcement investigation that falsely led them to Bryan Kohberger and all the details around that. I need you to take that and put it to the side because what we're going to discuss in this video is what I believe actually happened. And that's going to be very much in contrary to the investigation into Bryan Kohberger. What really happened when you look at the facts related to it, and then you take and you put in facts from the investigation and see where they really apply, I believe it lets us in on some of the information that we need to know to determine what really happened. So with all that being said, it goes back to the roommates. And there's some specific things that have been mentioned in these docs that really kind of perplex me when I cross-reference them with what I've learned in the past, what I heard in the hearings. So I'm going to dive into a few of those as well, just to try to see if we can make sense of it. And I'm trying to make sense of it as I do this video. I'm going to present it a certain way, but I'm trying to really make sense of it myself. At this point in time, this is how I've interpreted it. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it, okay? Okay, so we're going to start off right here in the King Road neighborhood. You can see this is where the King Road house was. These are the Linda Lane apartments. This is where the Linda Lane camera looks over the apartments right here, looks over the cars. And then the other Linda Lane camera looks down Linda Lane this way. But this 1112 Linda Lane camera that everybody always talks about, it's at this little house right here, and it's on the front porch, and it's facing this way. And that camera view captures this little intersection between Queen and King Road. And we know that according to the PCA anyways, that they captured the vehicle leaving the King Road neighborhood at 4:20. And it says that, it left on Walenta Drive. Well, I'm beginning to believe that there is no camera at all on Walenta Drive. I believe they caught a glimpse of the vehicle leaving out on this 1112 camera, and they know it went Walenta because it never came back and passed the camera on Linda Lane. So I believe that's how they know it went on Walenta Drive, which means, and everything that I found, even in the new court records, I mean, the only cameras they cite is the 1112 King Road camera. They really don't cite the Linda Lane cameras, but that's what they're talking about. Indian Hills, Steiner, that's it, and the Ridge Road camera. So it's this camera right here that is, it's kind of perplexing, and for a few reasons. And when we look at it, this is the view that camera gives us. So this is the view of that intersection I just showed you, where, this is aiming this way. The King Road house would be behind it. So if you left King Road and you came up and you turned this way, you would go up here and make a left on Walenta. Well, this camera that captures this screenshot you see here, you can see this is a little picture of it from when the law enforcement was confiscating it. It's actually this light bulb camera that is motion censored. And researching these cameras, and based on everything we know in the record, these cameras, they only come on for a certain period of time. It's either 30 seconds, 1 minute, or 5 minutes. Now, I'm sure they can be adjusted for different times. Most people don't mess with that, though. They just screw them in and turn them on. I think we can assume that this is a 5-minute camera once the motion sensor is detected. So your motion sensor is set off. And I'll explain why I say that here in just a minute. But that does bring up some other questions. Number one, according to everything that we know, no vehicles drove through here around 417. That last vehicle that we see doing anything is the vehicle that pulls in, they say is the white Elantra, and that pulls in at 404. So if it set off the camera at 404, well, you can bet it must have come in before 404. Because if it set off the camera, well, you know what? If it set off the camera at 404 when it came in, and that camera goes for 5 minutes, then it would have been off. It would have been off at 409. So no other vehicles or anything that we know about should have set this camera off between then. So what set the camera off at 417 when they say that they hear the audio of the dog barking, the loud thud, and the voices making a whimper? Well, I don't believe that noise would have set the thing off. I believe you got to have some kind of motion. So if that loud noise with the whimper, if we look at it like this, let's say that Murphy's out and about, right? We're going to get on Murphy for a minute. Let's say they put him out of the house. And by they, I mean they put him out of the house before all of this really went down. And Murphy's out here just kind of roaming around. And if he's over here, say, in this area, when all of a sudden you start to hear screams and whimpers and loud thuds, that would alert Murphy and cause Murphy to start barking. And Murphy, if he was over in this area, if he started barking and then ran towards the King Road residence, that would set off this motion. And I'm just trying to figure out how to correlate, Murphy barking and all of the voices and whimpers with this camera being activated, because something had to motion activate this camera. And the reason that I'm thinking it could have been Murphy is because what we've now learned. When you look in the court docs, first of all, you can see that it says in a footnote, Exhibit D15A is a police report indicating Murphy did not have any blood on him. And there's a screen capture of Nunez's body cam when he arrived in the house showing Murphy lying on Gonzalez's bed with no blood on him. So that means that Murphy more than likely was put back in the house after the atrocity. And I believe the doors were closed on the girls upstairs and Xana and Ethan's room downstairs. And they left Kaylee's door open for Murphy to go in there and jump on the bed. That would have happened after the atrocity. But also in this footnote, you can see it says the same security camera shows the suspect vehicle departing from the area of 1122 King Road at 4:20 a.m. So it's saying that 4:20 a.m., the security camera, the 111, it had to be the 1112 security camera would be the one that would have caught the vehicle leaving at 4:20. So that is interesting, but it's kind of bringing up, more questions than answers, really. But let's see if we can try to make sense of it. All right, so if that camera was activated, let's say by Murphy or something else at 4:17 a.m., and that's when the whimpering and the dog barking starts, and that camera's on a 5-minute time schedule to run. So if it starts at 4:17, it would stop at 4:22. Well, if the white vehicle leaving at 4:20, which I believe was the Elantra from that was found in Eugene, Oregon, 2013, let's say it left at 4:19 and it was caught leaving right here on the 1112 King Road camera at 4:20, well, that would make sense. If something set it off at 4:17, it's got a 5-minute window to capture things. But that also means that it would have stopped capturing things about 4:22, which means the vehicle that leaves the Linda Lane Apartments at 4:23 or 4:24 would not have been caught on that camera. It would have probably activated it, but it takes a minute for it to come on once it's activated, and that vehicle would have already been out of camera shot. So I don't believe they got another pic of that vehicle from that camera footage. Now, we know that that vehicle went this way because we see it passing Linda Lane at the proper time. But it does not turn and go towards the frat houses. It continues down Taylor, I believe, heading directly to Wasankari Construction. And if y'all seen my other videos, you know why I believe that. But if that was frats in any way, then it would have made a left and headed up and around to the frat houses, and it didn't. It kept going straight, which leads me to believe it then went south down to Wasankari. So, you know, that's just an interesting thing I think is something we got to figure out, because right here, how did that camera get set off at 4:17 a.m. to be able to capture the dogs, or even if it was a minute before that and it was already going to capture the loud thud and the noise and the dogs barking? How is that? And then the next thing that is curious is, as we talk about why I'm suggesting that could have been Murphy. And you can see, it says defendant has not met his Frank's burden on issue 6, the dog barking. Well, in this issue, defendant challenges omissions pertaining to the dog barking referenced in the Payne exhibit. It states that at 4:17, a security camera located at a nearby residence on King Road, so that's the 1112 King Road camera, picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times at 4:17. The only other information in the Payne exhibit A pertaining to a dog refers to the fact that Kaylee Gonzalez's dog, Murphy, was found in her bedroom by first responders. The defendant contends that Detective Payne failed to include 3 allegedly important pieces of information pertaining to the dog. Number 1, that the dog heard on the security camera continued to bark for 30 minutes after the suspect left. Okay, so now that's curious to me. How do they know that the dog continued to bark for 30 minutes after the suspect left? Because that camera that we just talked about, where is it at? Right here, we know it's only going to stay going for 5 minutes. So how did they continue to hear Murphy bark for 30 minutes unless Ann Taylor has cross-referenced the Linda Lane video to the situation, and she knows that the dog continued to bark from the Linda Lane video, which we can absolutely hear. The next part to that is, but I'm sure that she would have to have some way that she's proven that based on the record to be able to bring it up. So that's interesting to me. But the next part to that is that Detective Payne conducted a test to determine that the dog was likely outside while barking. So when it says likely outside by barking, we know that the dog starts barking at 4:17 a.m. when that security camera goes off, and he conducted a test and determined the dog was likely outside while barking at 4:17 a.m. So that tells me that the dog was outside running free at 4:17 a.m. and Payne conducted a test to verify that. So I believe that leads me to believe that this camera was set off at 417 or maybe a little bit before it by noises coming from the King Road house. And I think Murphy was running around here to set that thing off. When the noises happened, he started barking and headed towards the house. That is the best way I can determine that based on these new facts. But here is the key part to this, what Ann Taylor was getting at. And it's number 3 right here. That Murphy was found without any blood on him, even though the bedroom doors were open where the decedents were found. According to defendant, this omitted information would have revealed that whoever was in the house brought the dog back inside after the suspect left. Now, think about this for just a minute. According to the defendant, this omitted information would have revealed that whoever was in the house brought the dog back in after the suspect left. So what is the defense saying right here? Whoever was in the house after the suspect left brought the dog back in. Well, who do we know that was in the house after the suspect left? Dylan and Bethany. So basically the defense is saying whoever was in the house, Dylan and Bethany, brought the dogs back in after the suspect left. What does that mean? Well, that means that somebody let the dogs out before the suspects started committing the atrocity, and then after the suspects left, they let the dog back in. Now, I firmly believe that they let the dog back in and then they left. And I believe the vehicle that we see going across Linda Lane at 4:30 is none other than the roommates fleeing the residence. So you can see at 4:37, the vehicle coming from the King Road residence direction. You see it passing right now. Here's the headlights. There it goes. And then it's going to make a left, head up the road, and then it's going to make that other left going to what I presume is someplace that they feel like is a safe place with, other college friends. And do we know if that is Dylan and Bethany for sure? No, but it's likely because of the time frame. Do we know that it's both Dylan and Bethany or just Bethany? No, we don't. Now, I know everybody's first thought right now would be to say, okay, now it's the frats. Frats are involved. And I'm not here to demean anybody's thinking on the frats, so let me start out by saying that. But I do wish I could ask you at this point if you could just put the frats out of your mind altogether. Because what happens when you start thinking about how all the frat stuff could be involved right now, it's very hard for you to see what I'm trying to show you. So if you can, whether you believe it's the frats or not, if you could just put that to the side, out of your mind right now, and let me explain what I feel like happened here, and then maybe you can agree or disagree. But I know for a fact through research, court records of arrests, that we have Mr. Bailey and Mr. Gill up here trafficking millions of dollars in narcotics and bringing in more narcotics that could possibly be distributed in their area. And that's why they, were arrested for distributing it into, Idaho, Washington, and Alaska. And you can bet through arrest, we've determined that the route into Idaho goes from Bailey to Gill, to the mother and the father and stepmother in the case, to Mr. Farley, down to Mr. Burroughs, where we get into the Aryan Night connection, to Boise, straight to Meade and Uppenhauer. I've connected them directly to the father of the roommate's boyfriend, Mr. Kelly, who is a absolutely affiliated member with Meade and Uppenhauer. So to his son, to his girlfriend. And if we take, this is what's interesting, because if you take this list of connections and you leave Miss Dillon out, and you just start with Quinn here, well, the only way that you can connect any of these people to the victims in the house is through being the daughters of the mothers and the father and stepmother. So without the Dillon connection, that's the only way that you would be able to connect them. And I've tried a million different ways. But when you add the fact that Quinn's girlfriend is Dylan, well, now you've got what I call a double connection. So when you see this line going through from here to here to here and everything else connecting this way, it tells you that the key to the case is the one that connects it on the other side. And folks, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that when you've got a multi-million-dollar trafficking group that are Aryan Brotherhood prison gangs running it, and they're bringing narcotics in and they're bringing it over to another state and supplying the other Aryan prison gang narcotics group. And the only two main connections are these two by serving as the bridge to them. Well, when these are arrested and they think they're safe by giving up this one versus giving up the main organization, well, they leave out the fact that these guys are going to look at that as messing up their chain of supply, number one, but also that, hey, if they'll inform on that guy, what's to stop them from informing on us? We can't have that because we've got a multi-million-dollar operation going. We've established businesses that are incorporated with LLCs. We're laundering money. This is the real deal. They're going to mess this up. And they're used to it in prison, handling things, and they've already made an OMERTA pledge. What are they going to do? They're going to silence them and anybody else around like them. Anybody that thinks of doing what they're doing, they're going to send a message. How do they do that? The hardest way possible. So, in my point in all this, though, is the key to this is this one right here, to making it all work. So, when I go into these two, I firmly believe that the only reason this one's still alive is because of this one. And when you look at this is what I got wrong, and this is what is the most perplexing thing about this entire case. When this said in the state's proposed redaction list, it says page 25, line 6 through 26, or page 25, line 6 through page 26, line 21. This refers to a witness and roommate of the victims, and then the name's blacked out. I expected to see the actual lines redacted on the transcripts. That didn't happen. On the transcripts, they left the lines in there. You can clearly read them, and it matches up to everything they said here down to the objection, and it was sustained. The only thing that they redacted is the name, DM. One spot where they actually had her name out, they redacted it. So they left everything else in here. So they never once in the closed hearing ever once mentioned Bethany's testimony in the Franks, in the closed hearing, and any of the documents that we've seen thereof. How is it possible that she is never, ever brought up in any of this stuff? Well, the only way that's possible is if the court has ruled that there is a protective order in place over her. Why would they do that, though? Why would they give her a protective order? And here's something that we can determine from these records. This interview schedule right here that DM had with all of these investigators, first with Officer Nunez, next, the same day with Mowry, 3 days later with Gooch, and then on December 30th with Detective Lake. It says Dylan was interviewed all those times. You can bet that Bethany only had the first interview with Nunez, and then her parents lawyered her up and got her out of there, and she's never come back and doesn't have any desire to come back. So what is the difference between Dylan and Bethany? How can she stay and go through all the interview processes and not feel as in danger as Bethany does? What makes Bethany feel so endangered? Because let's face it, if it's Brian Koberger that's the unaliver, he's in jail. He's not going to hurt her. She's certainly not scared of the frats. What happened to Bethany that scared her so much that she has not implicated anybody in the crime, and she is lawyered up, got out of there, and as apparently very afraid to come back. Something serious must have happened to scare her that bad.
And I can tell you, it has since been confirmed. I do not have, and it has been discovered to defense. We had Special Agent Hill confirm, and he discovered this as Bates 15990, which confirms that the surveillance camera that was set up to capture motion would not have captured the corner the defendant says must have been necessarily captured.
I've got some information in the second part of that video that I think you will really appreciate. And I wanted to get that one out though, so people can stew on it a little bit before I break into the second part to that. By the way, Bubbly, I got your comment, and absolutely keep going strong on that. In fact, everybody go subscribe to Bubbly Waters' channel. She is awesome. She's doing some really good research right now. She informed me that she had located a couple of Farley's roommates that were in the county jail right now, and how they're starting to really round people up around there. So that's exciting news. For the next few days, I'm not going to have any deep dives for you. I may pop out just a commentary video or two. I've actually got some stuff I got to take care of around the house. Snow's melted, so I've got one more room that I'm supposed to be remodeling around here for the wife gets upset, so I got to really get out there and get that done. But thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms, and until next time, Pavarotti's out.
I was an ordinary boy until I broke the rules my life destroyed.